Welcome to The Explainer. So glad you're here with us. Look, if you're a focused learner trying to really decode the mechanics of early reading, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're tearing into the Phonics Guide to Rhyming Word Families. But hey, we're not just staring at letters on a page here. No way. We're going to explore how interactive, rhythmic, auditory cues literally rewire the brain for pattern recognition. It's all about how combining physical movement with vocal repetition creates this absolute powerhouse engine for literacy. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the phonics clapping method. Second, the AN and ACK families. Third, exploring the AD family. Fourth, the AIL and AIN families. And finally, number 5, hearing the pattern. Let's get to it.
Section 1, the phonics clapping method.
You know, when you first glance at this phonics guide, it might just look like your standard list of vocab words, right? Actually, scratch that. It's way more than that. It's essentially an instruction manual for a super interactive, highly physical teaching method. So the crucial point here is this instruction. Clap your hands as you say the rhyme part to help them hear the pattern. The physical act of clapping, it isn't just some fun little add-on to keep kids awake. It's the absolute engine driving this entire methodology. The clap acts like an auditory and physical punctuation mark. It literally severs the beginning sound from the rhyming ending, forcing the learner to recognize those two distinct parts of the syllable. Let's actually break down how this works in practice. Step 1, you isolate and kind of stutter the beginning sound, what linguists like to call the onset. So for the word can, you'd say si. Then, step 2, you deliver a sharp physical clap while shouting the rhyming part, the rhyme. Si, clap an. I literally want you to try this right now with me. I mean, unless you're on a quiet train, then maybe just give me a whisper clap. Ready? Si, an. See? Do you feel how that physical clap completely anchors the rhyming sound? That right there is the magic of this guide.
Moving right along to Section 2, the AN and ACK families.
Now that we've got the rhythm down, let's see how the guide actually applies this to the vocabulary. Notice how the structure here builds confidence step by step. We're starting off with the AN family, words that rhyme with man. The guide deliberately kicks things off with an incredibly familiar foundational sound. It's a short vowel sound, one that most early learners have already bumped into a ton of times in their daily environment. And honestly, the repetition is the whole point. You're leading the learner through the rhythm. C-C-C-an, followed immediately by F-F-F-an, and then M-M-M-an. By isolating that single consonant start and repeating it, the brain starts to anticipate the payload, you know? The learner knows that big "and" clap is coming. They start to realize that while the beginning of the word keeps changing from C to F to M, that powerful loud ending remains exactly the same. And this brilliantly illustrates how the guide seamlessly introduces complexity, but without ever breaking its own rule. We go from a single letter start, like pan, straight into blended starts like plan and clan. The methodology treats the two letters of the blend, so the P and the L or the C and the L, as a single initial repeating sound. The rhythm doesn't change one bit. It's not P-L-L-an, it's plan. This teaches the learner that consonant blends stick together as a unified team right before the rhyme.
All right, so having mastered the AN sound, the guide moves us straight into the ACK family, rhyming with back. What you should really take away from this transition is how beautifully the rhythmic rule transfers to a totally new vowel-consonant combo. The game is exactly the same, it's just the ending sound that's shifted.
Applying this rule to the ACK family, we've got our standard single consonant starts, right? Ba-ba-back, ja-ja-jack, la-la-lack. But the guide doesn't waste time. It immediately challenges the learner again with blends. My personal favorite is right in the middle, quack. And down at the bottom, stack. No matter how complex the spelling might look, the auditory rule holds totally firm. The learner realizes, hey, I just need to grab whatever is at the front of the word, stutter it, and then clap out the ACK.
Which brings us to Section 3, exploring the AD family.
By this point in the lesson, the physical momentum in the room should be absolutely electric. The learners aren't just reciting words anymore, they're practically performing the language. Let's see how this builds through this next list. The pacing here can become incredibly rapid. Ba-ba-bad, da-da-dad, ma-ma-mad. Because that rhythm is now second nature, the cognitive load of trying to sound out the ending of the word drops to near zero. The brain is freed up entirely to just focus on identifying that initial consonant sound. But the guide throws in a little twist here. Alongside a standard start like bad, We encounter a standard blend with gl, gl, glad, but we also get a digraph. That's two letters making one entirely new sound with ch, ch, chad. Once again, the sheer genius of this clapping method is that it keeps the focus entirely on isolating these specific phonemes. The learner doesn't get tripped up by seeing a C and an H next to each other because they're physically practicing them as a single, indivisible stutter. Ch, ch, chad.
Next up, Section 4, the AIL and AIN families.
So, shifting into our advanced vowel teams, you might notice something kind of unique about the AIL family compared to the groups we just looked at. There are absolutely no blends or digraphs here. It relies entirely on single-letter repetitions. Male, sail, tail. Now, you might be wondering, why would the guide step back in complexity here? Well, because introducing a new, long vowel sound is tricky. By keeping the start super simple, the guide allows the learner to totally dominate this list, setting them up psychologically for a final curveball. And here is that curveball, the AIN family, rhyming with rain. This final family takes literally everything the student has learned so far, about the rhythmic rule, about onset and rhyme, and about consonant blends, and puts it to a really deep test. The list starts out gently enough, grounding us in the new rhyme with those familiar single consonants. Rain, gain, pain. The learner gets to establish the new clap, but then the guide turns the dial way up. What's really fascinating about this final group is just how heavily it leans into complex blends and digraphs. Fully half of the words in this set require the learner to group multiple letters into a single stutter. Drain, plain, chain. What this proves is that once that clapping pattern is internalized, even intimidating, tricky words like train become entirely manageable for a kid. The physical rhythm just completely overrides the visual intimidation of the spelling.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, hearing the pattern. So we've gone through the 5 families in the source material, but let's take a step back. Why is this specific formatting so incredibly effective for teaching literacy? Well, it all comes down to how the brain processes sound, specifically pattern recognition. It's the ability to identify repeating auditory sequences. The repetitive text structure we just explored across all 5 families forces the learner to hear the split between the onset, that repeating stuttered sound, and the rhyme, the explosive clap. By combining vocal repetition with that sharp physical movement, the brain is mapping the phonetic structure in multiple ways all at once. It's visual, it's auditory, and crucially, it is intensely kinesthetic. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen just how powerful it is to take something static, just letters on a page, and transform it into a dynamic, physical rhythm. The Phonics Guide proves that when learners can literally feel the structure of a word in their own hands, complex reading rules suddenly become completely intuitive. So whether you are teaching early readers or you're just fascinated by how the human brain decodes language, I want to leave you with this. How will you use clapping, rhythm, and physical movement to reveal patterns in your next lesson? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep seeking out those patterns, and I will catch you next time.